well.
Yeah, in
Let
Tennessee,
me.
Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio. Not enough money in my account to bother.
uh,
Okay, Teresa, let us know. We'll send you some.
well, let's get this thing rolling in earnest. All
Yeah.
right, here we go. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, we are pleased to deliver two of the most accomplished, creative geniuses who are both at the pinnacle of their respective areas of the music industry. More on them in just a moment. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those questions as possible during the interview. And please make sure that your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. Whoops. Well, guys, I went too far. Oh well, to heck with that. Let's go back to this. Sorry, gentlemen, interrupted myself. I want to thank our program sponsors for their support. Without their support, we could not keep this free. Thank you to First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Jeff Coffin. Jeff is a globally recognized saxophonist, composer, educator, and is a member of legendary U.S. rock group Dave Matthews Band. You may also know him from his 14 years and 3 Grammy Awards, the genre defining Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. Jeff fronts numerous groups when not touring with DMB and has released 15 plus solo CDs on Ear Up Records. Jeff is known for his musical passion, his melodically driven compositions, his deep involvement with music education, and his continued dedication to the improvisational musical art form some call jazz. He's one of the top in-demand saxophonists in the world, as well as a first-call studio musician in Nashville, Tennessee, where he's lived since 1991. Jeff has released 17 plus solo recordings, is a Yamaha performing artist and clinician, a Boston Sax Shop ambassador, teaches improv at Vanderbilt University, authored 4 books, produces, engineers, mixes, and runs his own critically acclaimed record label called Ear Up Records. In 2020, Jeff began a streaming concert series during the global shutdown to benefit his fellow Nashville musicians called In the Studio from itsstudiostreams.com, where all proceeds go to local out-of-work musicians and their families. Welcome, Jeff. So glad to have you. And joining Jeff as today's featured guest is my friend Michael Weintrob. 2 decades of navigating the music business and transforming the storytelling of image. Photographer Michael Weintrob's work spans all aspects of industry. Created in the field where he has shot over 5,000 artists in concert or in his Brooklyn studio, Weintraub's work covers everything from advertising to editorial needs, showcasing the live element of performance and conceptual campaigns of portraiture, like his Instrument Head series, which is now over 400 artists strong. Advertising clients like Jack Prince, Jam Cruise, and World Games rely on Michael to deliver the essence of their story, as do editorial clients Downbeat, Relics, Spin, Rolling Stone, Billboard, and the New York Times. Michael has acted as house photographer for Red Rocks Amphitheater, the Festival Network, the Care Fusion Jazz Festival Series, and Bluegrass Underground, and is currently the house pick for Oz Nashville's Brave New Art celebrating its inaugural season. Major exhibitions of work have been hosted in Spain, by the U.S. Consulate in New Orleans during Jazz and Heritage Festival, and in Charleston for the Spoleto Art Festival, as well as within the Newport Jazz Festival. These exhibitions have financially benefited multiple charities over the years, including the New Orleans Musicians Assistance Foundation, Sweet Leaf Musicians Fund, Rock the Earth, and Music Maker Foundation as the Newport Festivals Foundation, with plans to continue giving as long as there are stories to tell. Please welcome these two rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Please take it away, Jeff.
Can't hear you.
Jeff, you're muted. Whoops. Jeff, sorry, I muted you. My bad. There you are.
Success.
Success. I need to update my bio, I think.
Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Michael, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing really great. Thank you.
Good. Well, thanks to all the folks showing up here and hanging out. I see a lot of Nashville people here also, which does not surprise me since we live in Nashville. And Michael, how long have you been here now?
I've been here for almost 7 years.
And so before this, you were in Brooklyn, right? Well, Williamsburg.
Yeah, I was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Yeah. I used to come there and visit you when I'd be on tour, and we would hang out and paint the town whatever color we could find.
Yeah, and, Indian restaurants at 3 a.m. after the gig.
Yeah,
you know?
I can't do that anymore.
No,
Well, Michael, you have one of the reasons we're here is to talk about this new book that you have coming out. And as people can see behind you, there's some really cool photographs. Michael, slide to the side just a little bit so they can see what's up on the wall. So these are from your original Instrument Head series. And this is at your studio in East Nashville. And, people can find you online and probably even visit over there or, talk to you about what you do online. But we're here to talk about not only Instrument Head, but the new project, Instrument Head Revealed. Let's do this, Michael. Let's start with Instrument Head. Let's start with the original concept, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that to kind of segue us into this new thing that's going on.
Basically, Instrument Head was just something that I did. I took a photograph of the Derek Trucks Band backstage at the Aggie Theater in 2000, and Todd Smalley, you know him, he came downstairs with his bass, and I said, do something crazy, put your bass down your shirt, and he did. And I thought, wow, these guys will do that if I ask them to do it. So it just became part of my process. So when I would do photo shoots with bands, I'd get them to cover their face with their instruments. I was shooting them outdoors all over. In 2003, I moved to New York City, started learning about studio photography in Brooklyn, where I lived actually. And Carl Denson and George Porter Jr. and Viva DiConcini all used these types of images on their album covers. And then I was living in this building filled with all these artists in New York, and I was always working on these conceptual art projects. And one day I walked into a bookstore and I saw a book called The Disciples, where this photographer named James Mollison had photographed fans of bands. And the whole idea was to guess what band they were the fan of. He went to a concert. I think he handpicked people from the crowd. Jimmy Buffett fans had grass skirts. Dolly Parton fans had blonde hair and cowboy hats. Willie Nelson fans had braids. ZZ Top fans had beards. You get the idea. So I thought that's really cool. How can I create a guessing game with the musicians? And I thought, well, I have all these photographs of them with their instruments covering their head. Well, how am I going to get the people to do it? Well, I had a phone full of numbers of all these musicians from shooting concerts for so many years, started calling all my friends like yourself, said, do you want to be a part of this? And in the entertainment business, they bring in stylists and makeup artists, and they're creating a bit of an illusion. But I wanted to photograph people with their items of their life, their clothes, and their instruments. Sometimes these instruments are just as famous as who the musicians are. They're an extension of who they are. So what would happen is I would do a whole photo shoot with them where I would take promo shots of them with all their stuff. And I gave them all free promo shots in trade for being a part of this.
Yeah. So for example, like Bootsy Collins and his bass, or Vic Wooten with the Yin Yang bass.
Right.
And so you're almost trying, from what I saw on some of that stuff too, it's almost like you're trying to put the personality of the musician, of the artist, on the instrument itself, like it's representative of them in certain ways. Do you have the cover of that book? Do you have one of those books right there?
And Jeff actually wrote the foreword to the book, everybody. He did the real justice. This is the book.
Yeah.
You can
And
see
so we already know who that is. Obviously, that's Bootsy Collins.
with the star base.
Right, right. You see the hat, the colors, and you're like, oh, that's that person. And so it's really interesting the way you sort of personify the artist through their instrument, which the instrument sometimes personifies the person also. So it's this very almost kind of reciprocal kind of nature to it.
Well, and they always say that portraits are all about the eyes, but I covered the eyes in these portraits, but people would always tell me that they could still feel the people. So
Right.
maybe that just talks about sharing space with people, making people feel comfortable and shooting them with their stuff, and they were comfortable that way.
Yeah, and I know too that you would take the instrument, like you would take these irreplaceable instruments. I mean, things that like we don't even let somebody look at most of the time, and you would hang them from the ceiling, right? And so I'm really interested in first of all, were there any mishaps or near mishaps, and can you talk a little bit about that process in convincing someone to let you do that to their instrument?
Well, there was a couple. I photographed a guy named Swiss Chris, who's a drummer, who's a famous hip hop drummer, and he had an MPC, his drum, and it started falling while we were shooting, and I dove and caught it, and I smashed my lens in the process. And then there's a guy named Joe McGinty, who actually just opened up Sid's Gold Room here in East Nashville. He was in the Losers Lounge and the Psychedelic Furs, and actually his glasses broke, because he had this giant Moog synthesizer that looks like a bomb or something. It's like this big, and we taped the glasses to it, and they fell and broke. So those are the only 2 times out of probably 700 photo shoots that anything has ever broken before.
Wow, fantastic. Well, that's a pretty good track record.
Yeah, I mean, you remember? I think you were with me when we shot Jonathan Scales, and I think his steel pan actually hit the floor at one point. But
Oh yeah, I remember being over there with John.
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, sure was. Okay, so the instrument head, you're covering the face, you're covering the eyes. The instrument is kind of the focal point, but like what we see in the background there, there are things that represent
Right.
also. And so this new book, Instrument Head Revealed, is the name of it.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about that. Is it obviously it's different photographs?
So basically, I would do a full shoot with people when I would do these sessions, and the instrument head would only take like 3 to 5 minutes because it's torture. So the one thing that people would always say to me when they would come see my work is, I wish I could see the faces behind the instruments. Well, the great thing about it is I've got 10 times more images of these people where you can see the face. And I've always wanted to put out a book of my portrait work that was different than the instrument head. And the pandemic gave me some time on my hands to actually go through the work. And now, we've been masked up for almost 2 years now. And the cool thing about this is that we're unmasking the instrument heads, and that this new book is going to become a key to the original book. So it's going to be made of the same paper, the same material. You'll be able to get both books in a box. The cool thing about this, Jeff, is we launched my crowdfunding campaign to publish this book today. And we're going to give $3 of every book sold to the New Orleans Musicians Clinic. And I would love for Tom to show a little video to people where they can see what we're talking about, and then we can keep talking.
Yeah. So the launch is Indiegogo, is that right?
Yeah, it's on Indiegogo. So if you go to instrumenthead.com, that forwards to the link, and check out this video. Oh, that's the book. Yep, this is it. And that's Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead. I buried him in drums. No sound, Tom.
That looks like you.
That's me.
Yep. Hey Tom, we're not getting any sound here. It's kind of garbled up. That's also you.
That's me.
So Michael, so while we're figuring this out here, so you said something interesting. you said, during the pandemic, we were all
The book
masked.
was
Well,
released in
many of us were.
2017, and we
And
went on to win Most Outstanding Design at the Independent
oh,
Book Awards that
I hear
year.
the sound now, but
Here we
no,
are.
Since
no
its
video.
release, I've been traveling around the U.S. showcasing my instrument head work and creating immersive music and art experiences. I've had the pleasure of meeting so many incredible people on the road.
Hey, Tom,
One
we're
of
not seeing the video.
conversations I have with folks when they come to see my work or when they flip through
We
the
can
book
cut it. They can go and
is
check
that
it
they
out.
wish they could see the faces behind the instruments. And I
Guys, I'm terribly sorry on the technical difficulties. Did you get any of that?
Okay, so here's the deal, everyone who's watching this thing. If you go to instrumenthead.com, you can watch the video, and that'll tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Can I try it again for you? Apologies.
Yeah, let's try it again.
Come on.
That's actually my wife. That was in Holland at the North Sea Jazz Fest.
can totally see why. Well, fortunately, we created many other types of photographs.
Can you bring us back to the beginning, Tom?
My goal has always been to capture the art.
Okay, here we go.
And also turn it up.
Hi, my name is Michael Weintrob. I've been a photographer for over 20 years with my main focus on musicians. In 2015, after many attempts at finding a major publisher, I decided to go the self-publishing route. In October of that year, we ran a successful campaign on Indiegogo to crowdfund my very first book called Instrument Head. And I created my own publishing imprint called Magnet Bound Press. The book was released in 2017, and we went on to win Most Outstanding Design at the Independent Book Awards that year. Since its release, I've been traveling around the U.S. showcasing my instrument head work and creating immersive music and art experiences. I've had the pleasure of meeting so many incredible people on the road. One of the reoccurring conversations I have with folks when they come to see my work or when they flip through the book is that they wish they could see the faces behind the instruments, and I can totally see why. Well, fortunately, we created many other types of photographs during these sessions. My goal has always been to capture the artist's own personal look and style. My approach to this work is very straightforward. I ask them, how are we going to tell your story? What is it about you that makes you special? This is Instrument Head Revealed, a deeper, more personal behind-the-scenes look at the wider scope of this project. I'm asking for your support again to help us continue our journey of art, music, and education. Hopefully the work will inspire you to learn about new music and the artists who create it. By supporting this campaign, you'll be empowering me to stay on this path. We have a lot of great incentives. I think there's something for everyone. I want to give back to the musical community, and the New Orleans Musicians Clinic is a charity that I deeply respect. They help musicians so much by sustaining their mind, body, and spirit. $3 of every book sold will go to this amazing organization.
And you can stop
Instrument Head
there.
Revealed will be the perfect complement to those of you who already own the Instrument Head book. You'll be able to use this book as a key to the original. Thanks for listening, and I'll see y'all down the road.
So we had a little bit of a buffering issue, but you guys get the idea. I'm really excited, and I feel like I've birthed the baby today, you know.
Yeah, well, that would be the second baby in how many months, Michael? Because recently you
months.
became a dad.
I'm a new dad. Yeah, I've got a 5-month-old daughter, and her name is Maya Brooklyn, and she's my greatest art project ever.
Yeah, yeah. So how is that changing things for you as an artist?
You know, my time management skills have gotten much better. I don't know what I did with all my time before, but you know, it really has got me to focus. It's really motivated me to kind of go after the things that I've been procrastinating on, like trying to put this book out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have someone else to take care of now, and I want to do right by her.
Yeah, yeah. So people need to check out this book to help fund her college career.
We got to buy some diapers.
It's got to buy some diapers.
We got to buy some diapers.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy for you, man. That's so great. You have a beautiful daughter. I've met her, and we've hung out a little bit, and she's as cute as can be. She's as cute as can be. Hey, so I'm going to come back to this, Michael. You had said earlier that you know, during the pandemic, you know, we're all masked and you know, most of us were, some of us were not. And I don't mean that being me. I mean, just, some yahoos decided not to go mask. But you were talking about that in the sense of now we're unmasking, and you're sort of, we're kind of revealing ourselves again,
Right.
and so I see a parallel, if you will, to this new book of yours, also Instrument Head Revealed. And so I'm wondering if that was sort of an impetus, and uh, does sort of us unmasking now, coming out of the pandemic, did that kind of inform some of your decision making on the timing of this book, and sort of the idea behind this book to suddenly reveal
100,
faces also?
100%.
Yeah.
We've all been kind of, you know, shut in for a long time, and now everyone's starting to come out of that. And I feel like, for me, as well as an artist, being able to show this work in this way, it's also me. I've had some success with these instrument heads work and these exhibits and traveling around and doing all these different kind of musical experiences. But for me to be able to show this work as a photographer, to show my true portrait work, is like me kind of coming out a little bit as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I know that you were saying $3 of every book's going to the musicians clinic in New Orleans.
That's right.
And so I know that you have a similar place in your heart for New Orleans as I do. It's absolutely my favorite city on the planet, and I've never felt so welcomed anywhere in my life. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of not only the influence of that city, but the pull of that city, and the sort of, I guess, influence on what you're doing with the book also, because New Orleans, as we know, is a very colorful city, a lot of characters, shall we say. And
Well,
there's a tremendous amount of diversity, which is one of the other things that I love in your book, and I want to talk about that a little bit coming
well,
up.
I've been going to New Orleans since 1996 and going to Jazz Fest, and I kind of grew up in that fairgrounds, running around, and I would shoot it for Downbeat. And I got to know people like George Porter Jr. and Alan Toussaint and Snooks Eagland and Phil Fraser from the Rebirth Brass Band. In my book, there's over 40 New Orleans musicians. I set up my studio in Preservation Hall. Ben Jaffe, he let me shoot there, and I shot Uncle Lionel Batiste and Monk Boudreaux there. And I've worked a lot with Donald Harrison, who's the great saxophonist, and he's also a big chief. And I've learned a lot about their cultures. And I believe that there's such a rich heritage in New Orleans, especially with jazz, and it's a story that needs to be told. And I believe that photography is about telling stories. So all the people that I photograph, I like to think that they're historically relevant. I was talking to Leon Bridges, musical director, one time, and he goes, "I know who you are." I go, "Yeah, what do you know about me?" He goes, "You'd rather shoot a Neville brother than a Jonas brother." And that's the truth. I'm enamored by the culture and the sounds of New Orleans. And I met Bethany Boltman, who's the head of the New Orleans Musicians Clinic at Central Park Summer Stage many years ago, and we became friends. And I just love what they do. They helped, Dr. John. They helped a lot of people. A lot of people are still alive because of them, and that's why I'm supporting them. And she's actually writing the foreword to the book, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's interesting, Michael, obviously you're a very gifted photographer as well, but one of your other gifts that continues to astound me is how you remember people's names. Like you pull names out of the hat, when like you'll see somebody, we'll be doing something somewhere, and you'll see somebody and recognize them, not just recognize them, but remember their name. And like I can hardly remember my own name most of the time. And for me, like if I see somebody outside of where I'm used to seeing them, I'll just be like, you know,
I mean, as a
I
photographer,
don't know how you do it, man.
well, I photographed concerts for so many years, and I was just running around staring at people. and taking their photographs. And, you know,
Right.
I had 5-minute relationships with 5,000
Even
people.
more reason to forget who they are, like
But I
forget
just
their name.
never, I guess
But
maybe
you
it's a
don't.
photographic memory. Maybe I'm a little bit on the spectrum, who knows? But I just really always cared about all these musicians. And,
Right.
you know, they told me that everyone said I was good at doing photography, and I was never really good at anything. And so I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do.
Mm.
And that's what I've stuck to. And I just really respect people. You know, I like to, and I like their creative process, and I like to be able to, for them to trust me to share space with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's always astonishing to me. And again, I don't know how you do it.
I
But
mean,
it's,
how do you remember saxophone, how to play the saxophone? You do it a million
that's
times.
different than remembering people's names.
I practice a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really great, man. And I think that that's one of the things that, um, allows you to have a personalized relationship with people.
Right.
And as I said, the diversity thing I wanted to talk little bit about also, because, not only, um, the diversity of what you do as a portrait photographer and as a photographer in general, but the musical diversity also. Like, more people in Nashville than I do, and I've been here for 30 years. And you'll be like, oh, well, this guy and this woman, and and I'm like, I don't have any idea who you're talking about. And they're very well known within the scene. Part of that is that I'm not here very much, but you have an interest, like a wide divergent interest in the arts and in music in particular, and you've um, sort of tweaked your studio there to be very inviting to a lot of different people. There's a lot of natural light there. It's in a great part of town. There's a lot of other artists around you, and I just wonder if you could speak to the diversity, um, of what you sort of look for musically, artistically, personality wise, et cetera.
I mean, for me, it's all about the hang. I want to be around people and have it be a good experience and invite them into my space. You know, you talk about my studio, how I've made it inviting for people. When the pandemic hit, there was a guy named Greg Burns who lives here in town, who's an audio engineer, who was Green Sky Bluegrass's head engineer for 10 years. And now he's on the road with Toby Keith. They're starting to go back out on the road. But he brought Green Sky's old tour rig into my studio. He installed a light truss. He brought a trailer out the back door and put a multi-track recording trailer. And we have full stage and monitor sound. And we turned this place into a virtual venue. And it's kind of like, the shrimp boat in Forrest Gump.
Hmm.
All the places were closed, and I started catching all the shrimp. So all the musicians started coming playing shows in here. We did over probably 60 concerts in here that were very safe, socially distant concerts in here during the pandemic, and gave people a place to create. And so I just want people to have my space where people can come and do their thing.
Yeah.
And the really awesome thing about this is that in the spring we filmed a concert series in here where we shot 20 different bands, and you being one of them. Everyone, we put Jeff and Future Man and Victor Wooten with Bob Lanzetti from Snarky Puppy together, and we created a concert series called the Revealed Concert Series. And tonight is actually the opening night of that series as well, with a guy named Steve Poltz. And all the shows are streaming on the internet for free.
What different platforms are those streaming on?
Well, you can watch it on instrumentheadlive.com. You can watch it on nugs.net. Nugs is a premier concert streaming service. They're gonna be streaming 8 of the shows. And then this new 24-hour music streaming platform called volume.com, which is a really amazing place for artists. We're gonna stream all the shows there. Plus it'll be on Facebook, on Steve's page. And the cool thing about this pandemic is it brought people together. So the thing about Facebook is that you can cross post on different people's pages. So all these different people within my community, whether it's the Leaf Festival in Asheville or the New Orleans Musicians Clinic in New Orleans or what have you, they're streaming this content on their pages just because they want to be supportive, So you can get this information out to a lot of people really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the internet has obviously, changed things for artists around the world. Not only the connectivity, but being able to share the art. And you're right. I mean, this one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that it forced creative people to find creative ways of being creative. And so
You
for,
did it
for
with
many
your
of us,
studio, you know?
yeah, so for many of us, we started doing live streaming. We started to reach out in different ways and providing other content um, of what we do, like behind the scenes things. And yeah, like Brody says, yeah, and to organize their creative content. And so, for me, and I think that for a lot of other people also kind of coming back into, um, you know, into some sort of normalcy, we've got to kind of bring ourselves back to almost a different vibrational state. And it's never going to be the same because of what we collectively went through. But the interesting thing to me is that we did go collectively through this, and it's a shared experience. And I think that when you have a shared experience like this, it does something to connecting people. And I think that it kind of binds us together in a certain way. So that I think creatively, what's going to be coming out soon, immediately even, is really fantastic, and um, your journey with this obviously has not been, nothing happens overnight, obviously, you know, and so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point. I know that you started off in Birmingham, and you've kind of taken this circuitous route to get to Nashville. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that. Um, yeah, maybe just a little bit about your journey and kind of what brought you to today.
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Um, I wasn't ready to go to college when I graduated high school, so I went to work on a kibbutz and on a moshav in Israel for 6 months and learned a very serious work ethic. I later went on to start college in Florida, and then in 1995, I moved to Colorado, where I went to Colorado State University. That's where I became a house photographer for the Aggie Theater, started meeting people and musicians around the Front Range. I later went on to become a house photographer for Red Rocks Amphitheater. I kind of topped out there, and I thought someone offered me a place to live in New York City. I got in the car and I moved to Brooklyn. I'd never seen the apartment and I'd never been to Brooklyn. I just moved there. So for me, it's like I'm always jumping off the cliff. And
Let's talk about that place in Brooklyn for just a short, brief moment, Michael.
the first place, or the
That was in Brooklyn.
was
So
the
then you
first
moved to
place. Yeah.
Williamsburg.
But you can talk about the place I moved into in 2005. That
Yeah,
you
wasn't there
mentioned.
something going on in the basement there?
Oh yeah, in 2008, the fire department of New York issued a vacate order, and they kicked us all out in the middle of the night on the coldest day of the year, 220 people, because there was an illegal matzah factory. It was owned by these Hasidic Jews, and they had these wood burning stoves and these grain silos, and the building could have exploded. So we were basically homeless from January, the end of January of 2008 through May of 2008. And so all these people who lived in the building, or many of them, were in New York trying to sue, freezing. I got on a plane, went to LA. My friend gave me his guest house to live in. I started getting hired to shoot bands. And that's when I went on to become the house photographer for the Festival Network. And, it's like, are you going to take door number one or door number two? And so it's the path that you take, or the vessels and the bridges that bring us to where we are. And then we moved back into that building. And then the great part about being in New York is that when I first got there, I met with editors at Vibe and Spin and Rolling Stone and the New York Times, and they all told me that my live music photography was as good as it gets. But if I wanted to be a portrait photographer in New York, I needed to do some studying. Now, I've never taken a real formal photography class, but I've had a lot of mentors. And in that building were my friends who were my neighbors, who were assistants from Mark Seliger and Stephen Klein and Annie Leibovitz. And, these guys taught me how to be a portrait photographer. And when you're in the field shooting as a, photojournalist doing reportage, you have to be able to capture what's happening. When you're in the studio, you have to be able to create it. But if you don't have the instincts to be able to capture what you create, it doesn't work. So having both of those skills has kind of taught me and helped me to kind of take my art to the next level. So living in New York was like being in college, photography school for me.
Right. So you said that some of the folks in your building were working with people like Annie Leibovitz and
That's right.
and others. And so, are there a couple of things that they sort of shared with you, seeing your photography, that little maybe mini epiphanies that you had, while talking to them, or stuff that they were like, well, hey, you should think about this, or I'm just wondering, a couple of things that they may have shared with you that made a big difference in your art.
I mean, when you're shooting portraits, it's a portrait. You want to shoot it tight, you know? If
Mm.
you're on location and you're trying to tell the story of the location, you can shoot it wider to tell the story of the place. But portrait work is about tightness, and you don't have to have a million lights to do a studio shoot. Sometimes it only takes one. Most of the time, it only takes one for me.
So,
Um,
do you experiment with that? Like you're talking about lighting and that kind of thing. Do you find yourself, like sort of, this is the wrong terminology for it, but like with lighting kind of going on autopilot, or are you exploring different methods of lighting to enhance the portrait, to enhance the person? Uh,
well, the beauty of digital photography, when we were shooting film, you'd have to wait to get the film developed. Now, when you're shooting digitally, you can actually see what you're doing. You move the light around, you see what it does. So for me, the lights in my camera are an extension of who I am, just the way that your saxophone or your flute or would be for you. So
right.
I lose myself when I'm doing that. I'm a totally different person.
Mm.
I something comes out of me where I'm running on autopilot, and photo shoots. If some of you are musicians or music managers and you represent bands, some of your artists probably say, "Oh, that photo was the worst photo shoot I've ever done. I'm so tired. It sucked all my energy," because that's what these things do. But for me, I give a lot of energy.
Mm.
So most of the time, people leave these shoots with me and they're high from the adrenaline rush from doing this, and I'm the one who has my energy sucked. So for me, it's about sharing space and breaking down walls. And I remember, you deal with rock stars and ego, and that's the thing, breaking down walls. I remember Doyle Bramhall came in here one day. If you know who he is, I'm on a Zoom call. If you remember who Doyle Bramhall is, he's a great blues guitarist, and he came in with his glasses and his cool outfit. And I said, "Well, hey man, what if we do it like this?" He goes, "How about I do it like this?" And I'm like, "Okay, that's how this is going to be." And next thing you know, I'm standing above him on a ladder, hanging his Fender guitar, like you said, from the ceiling, and he turned into a 12-year-old boy. So everyone has the opportunity to be a kid again when you break down the ego. And photography is about trying to find the true essence in people, and that's what I strive for.
Gotcha. Yeah. Nice. Nice.
I hope that
Now,
answered your question.
I'm gonna flip to something completely different here. You
Uh-huh.
told me the other day that your dad gave you your first camera,
Yeah, he did.
and why?
Well, I don't know. My dad, when I went off to college, he was actually working in a pawn shop at the time. And my dad was a jeweler for many years, and he gave it to me. It came into the pawn shop. And, my whole life, I found these photographs of me when I was 13 years old, where I was taking a photograph of myself in the mirror. Like, it's like the original selfie, and I would go to summer camp and take millions of photos of everything. I always loved taking pictures for some reason.
Mm.
And I always wanted to be in the music business. I studied uh, public relations, but the camera is what got me in.
Mm.
We're all trying to hang out with guys like you, and it's like, how are we going to get to the musicians? Well, you're either going to work in the music business, you're going to be a manager, an agent, a publicist, a photographer, a journalist. So, my path was the photography. And when I was in college, we had an assignment for um, a mock business, and I called it group photography. You remember that? And
Mhm.
it might be the worst name in the history of business. But I remember being in New Orleans, and it stuck for 8 years because I was photographing bands, and I just loved it. I just love doing photography, and it wasn't work for me. It was just something I did.
Right. It was kind of a melding of your passions.
You want to see the camera? It's right here,
I
actually.
do actually.
This is it.
Was it digital or is it
No,
film?
it's film. It's film. It's a Nikon 4004 camera. You can see it's really dusty. And this is a 105 macro lens where I learned from Alan Messer the other day, because I had to scan some negatives, that you can use this lens to photograph your negatives and slides with a digital camera and create digital negatives. And that's what I'm going to start doing. I've been looking for this lens for that purpose, actually. I just found it. So
There you go.
there you go. Yeah. So, I mean,
what do you think it is about, like, what draws you to photography? I mean, is there something specific? Because I know from, we talk about photography a lot because I'm also a photographer. I've been doing it for years, and I absolutely love it. And I know what draws me to it, but I'm curious if you can sort of pinpoint what draws you to it.
well, for me, I'm obviously an extrovert,
Mm-hmm.
and I love to connect with people. I love to photograph people, and I love to share space with people, and I love to connect.
Mm.
And for me, it's all about connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about it. I love to, like I said, break down walls and try to, you know, have a real hang with somebody.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it is about photography that allows you to connect with people?
Like I said, when I'm shooting, I turn into a different person. My confidence level is much higher for some reason. Um, and I've always been, people have liked my photography, and it's got me into a lot of doors, into a lot of different rooms and a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do something and then you actually deliver and you have a good work ethic, people will always invite you back.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it's been for me, And I think that cameras, it's a different thing now that, you're in Rwanda as a photojournalist and you have a giant, giant camera that you're shooting at someone. People might take offense, but now with this, everybody's being photographed all the time, and people are really comfortable around cameras. But I'm also really conscious to not pull my camera out, and learning how to read the room when the time is right.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have, let's say, 3 favorite photographers?
Yeah, I would have to say that Herman Leonard
Mm.
is my favorite photographer of all time. He's super innovative. I got to spend a lot of time with him.
I remember that. Yeah.
He was the best. He shot those photos of Duke Ellington and Dexter Gordon, and he had with all the smoke, and Ella Fitzgerald, and he was putting lights in the rafters at these jazz clubs, way back in the day. And
What did you learn from him?
well, he told me I was a younger version of himself one
Mm.
time, which was the greatest compliment, ever. I just learned, it's about being a fly on the wall.
Mm.
There's a guy, who was, Richard Avedon. Richard Avedon is an amazing photographer. He's so famous around the world, but his style was so simplistic. He only used one light, and he had a look. So, if you listen to, okay, for instance, I can turn this on for music. I was on Jam Cruise one time. They had a saxophone workshop, and you were on it, and it was you, Carl Jensen, Skerrick, and Maceo Parker. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
And then you guys all took turns, and you guys did a solo. And obviously, you guys are all amazing musicians. And Maceo just went up there and went pop, and he just did one note.
Yep.
And that one note was so powerful. If you listen to Carlos Santana play one note on the guitar, it's him or Jerry Garcia. So the same is with photography or painters. The goal is, as an artist, is to be able to find your voice. And the only way you find your voice is through repetition. You realize you like something, and then you copy it, and then you master that, and then you move on. You evolve into what you become.
I love the quote, "Through repetition comes magic."
Yeah, through
It
repetition.
seems like magic. It's just repetition.
Yeah, just do it a lot. It's like, and who's another photographer that I love? David Allen Harvey, is another one of these guys who was a Magnum photographer. These guys, I lived in New York in this building, and guys like him and Jim Knockway and these like serious photojournalists who are the guys who, you're on the boat and the boat's about to sink and he snaps the photo before everyone dies and they get rescued by a helicopter, like those are the kind of guys that, are in the shit, So
Right.
I love the portrait photographers and I love the storytellers. And that's why I try to mix the two within the work that I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite photographers is Sebastião Salgado.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love what he does. I mean, and do you do much black and white? I haven't seen much of your black and white work.
I mean, when I was shooting film, I shot a lot of black and white work.
Yeah.
And when I'm shooting digitally, everything has the potential to be black and white. So depending on what the color is I'll transform that or, desaturate the images.
Right. Right. So I come back to your dad giving you the camera. I'm just curious, like, why was there something, like, had you had a conversation? Did he just think, oh, I think Michael would enjoy photography? Or was he a photographer?
Like
Did
I
you have a
said,
love for it?
I always kind of had a little point and shoot camera in my hand growing up, and he knew I liked it. And,
Oh,
he
so this
got
was
it.
after you were already doing some of that.
Right. So this was like, I was doing those photos when I was a kid. And then when I was, 19 is when he gave me this camera.
Right. 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 And he's seen some of the instrument head work.
Oh yeah. My father's 89 years old and, my mother passed away 5 years ago. But, my father's come to some of my exhibits and, I'm happy to see, that he's alive today, to see this campaign that I launched this morning and to be able to see, my father, I've done 1,000 photo shoots for free, right? Like I just did them to do them. And, because I lived in New York, and I thought I was a big shot and I thought that I was the king of losing jobs. I thought that I needed to get paid $3,000 to $5,000 to click a button. And then I realized, do I have a really expensive closet or a photo studio? I need to create work. And my mother, God rest her soul, when she was alive, I would say, oh, I'm doing this great photo shoot. And she'd be like, for money? And I'd be like, no, but it's going to come. Don't worry. It's going to be great. And she'll be like, okay. And so luckily my father, we didn't send you to college to do this and blah, blah, blah. And luckily my father's alive today to actually see that that day has actually come. And I'm starting to reap the benefits of all the hard work that I've put in.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Parents just want their kids to be successful and, they didn't know that photographing musicians was a viable job.
Sure, sure. Well, very different than their own personal existence, of course.
Right.
Have you ever done like a serious portrait with your dad?
I have.
Yeah.
I
What
have.
was that like? Because like what Brody was saying, Brody Dawson was saying earlier, that photography takes you into a very vulnerable place. And so I'm just curious, like photographing your dad, because I have some photos of my dad shortly before he passed, and they're very heavy, man. He was going through.
I had him here, and I took some portraits of him with my sister and her family, but I haven't actually had just like a solo portrait shoot with him here, which I guess it's time to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it'd be very powerful for you both.
Yeah. I mean, I think he likes it. He just likes seeing me being confident.
Yeah.
And, knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he'll say, well, how do you know how to do that? And, that's the cool thing about also these concerts that we filmed that were airing is that a bunch of guys got together who were really good at what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And we created this thing. I didn't have to go and learn how to do all the video. All I have to do is just connect with people and take photos. And then we got this guy, Max Schindler, who's a director for Good Morning America. And he's been living in Memphis at his dad's place, who coincidentally enough was the first broadcast journalist for Meet the Press. And we have an audio guy. So we all got together and, you want to surround yourself with people who are great at what they do and we boost each other up. And, that's what we have done with this thing here. So I want to be around people who are, not going to suck my energy. I want to be around people who are going to, add to the vibe,
Yeah, absolutely. And so the first concert airs tonight, Michael.
That's right. Tom, do you want to air the promo trailer for everybody so they can see what's going on?
Coming right up.
And Michael, is there a link to the Indiegogo campaign we can share with everybody here?
Yeah, just go to instrumenthead.com. That's the other video. You're looking at click on the next.
This one, right?
That's the one we just watched. So click on that one. Yep. Nope. Go to revealed. That's it.
Ah, sorry.
Okay. Now make the screen bigger there, and now hit play. See if it'll all be synced up in time. So Magnet Bound Press is the name of my publishing company. Instrument Head Live is the name of my streaming service. And this is what we did. And this is a new single in the background that Peter Levin did with the Blind Boy Development. Nope. It's not working. There you go.
Can you not hear it?
I can, but
Can you hear it?
it's jumping back and forth for some reason. It's not playing the video from the start.
You want me to start it over?
Yeah, start it over from the beginning. It's only 1 minute long, but this is the wrong thing, Tom.
Oh man, my
Don't worry.
bad. I don't know what happened there.
We had an issue.
We had it teed up.
Technical difficulties. If you go back to the top of your tab up there, right there, that's it. So start it at the beginning. Scroll back to the beginning and see if that'll work. Here we go.
Could have sworn that's what we
Just
did.
don't go full screen with it. Hit play.
I swear I'm clicking play.
Yeah, working. Marcus King and Timbo Hart, 11. I think you're wearing the same shirt, Jeff. That.
Sure.
From the prairies to the rivers, from the prairies to the rivers, from town to town, hear me, brothers and sisters.
Okay, so that is it.
Pulled off your website also, and I think this takes people to the Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah, so instrumenthead.com will take you to the campaign, and Instrument Head Live will take you to the concert series.
Yeah, and so again, those start tonight. And how many of them are there, Michael? 20?
There are 20 different shows.
Fantastic.
And you know, I've been thinking about this since, it's been a lot of work. Originally I wanted to do 7 shows, and we scheduled all these bands started changing their schedule, and I'd already, gotten the production in there. So then I had to start adding more and more bands. And, the cool thing is that my studio is right in the heart of East Nashville, and all the musicians live really close, and everyone was around, and we created a safe, fun environment. And the product that we were creating was really good, and people really enjoyed it. And I'm just so blessed and thankful and filled with abundance and love, and so happy that it all is working out,
Yeah. Well, congratulations. So the new book is called Instrument Head Revealed, and it's the second in the Instrument Head series. The first one, show us the first one, Michael. Yeah. And so that's where all their instruments are taking place of their face, and
the
then
key in the
one is
back.
actually revealing the faces.
And Colonel Bruce Hampton, if any of you guys knew who Colonel Bruce Hampton was, there you can see this is actually him on the wall up there, but he wrote the quote on the back of the book. And I'd love to read you this quote that Colonel Bruce Hampton wrote, who is our friend. You want to hear it?
Absolutely.
Okay, he wrote, and this guy was a crazy guy, and this is the kind of guy that gave us all permission to be ourselves. He wrote, Instrument Head, an obsession, a compulsive journey. This visionary book is not playing checkers. You might say the wind starts here. The production, the vision makes time look like space. This is now. What an outspiration. You can see the music and it dance. That's that's like the greatest compliment ever. And actually, I was there. I was there the day of his tribute concert, and I got to give him the book that day. And he died later that night on stage in the encore of his show. And you know, we talk about photography and being a photographer. I'll tell you this story. Is I was there. I was in the lobby selling my photographs, or trying to sell my book, and I thought, well, what am I doing? They're in there. Chuck Leavell's on stage, Susan Tedeschi, Derek Trucks. I go, what am I doing in here? I got my camera, left my stuff there, went in. And when Bruce came out on stage, I was in the front row. I could touch the stage, and I photographed every moment from when he came out and he pointed at little Taz and he went to bow down to him and he died on stage. I could touch his feet. Besides me and Mike Seal, we were the closest people to them. Warren Haynes was there, John Popper was there. And we were all very distraught. You know, it was an amazing ending. And then I did what I was trained to do as a photographer, you know, as being the camera being an extension of who I am. I did it. And the next night I got hired to shoot Neil Diamond at the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans. And they made me edit the photos after the show. Well, I dropped the hard drive and I lost all the pictures of Bruce dying on stage. And I was so upset. But then I realized that it's like a Buddhist sand painting. It's lessons in attachment. You do what you do in the moment, and it's not about the ego being the guy who has it. You know, you just got to do it, you know? And now I try not to lose photos, but you know, that was the last lesson that Bruce Hampton taught me.
Yeah. He was a beautiful, beautiful human being. And, you know, he's definitely missed by everybody. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the idea of impermanence and, you know, how that reflects in our art. And, you know, as a musician, you know, the reason that the studio is called Into the Air is that when we play the music, it goes into the air. You know, it's like kind of like throwing a pebble into a lake. You know, there's ripples, and eventually you don't see those ripples, but they're there somewhere. They've affected something along the way. And I think that's the same with you know, your photography also, is that, you know, all these people, these, you know, hundreds of people that are represented in your work, these are like little ripples that continue. And, you know, they are representative of where you are in a time and place and space. And
Space
the book is a new journey. Yeah, space is the place, right?
Well, it's a new journey too. And, you know, a lot of, you know, there's many people, some of these photographs, you know, nothing in this book was shot before 2015. I have enough photos to put a whole nother book out, or 2 more books that I've shot then. But many of the people have passed away, including our friend Ike Stubblefield, who died yesterday.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really sad, but, you know, but like I said, it's about telling stories. And, you know, like, this is our friend Ike. And, you know, and we had so much fun. We got to hang those organ pedals from the ceiling, and he had so much fun doing it. And, you know, it's just makes people happy. And that's why I do this stuff, and to educate people. So when all the people in the business, in music business, and the promoters and everyone are gone, the only thing that's going to be left is the art and the music.
Yeah.
So I want to be a part of that story. You know?
And art is so important that we have places like museums and galleries to put them, you know? Yeah. And so, man, congratulations on this new book, Michael. Very proud of you. It's fantastic. And Tom, thanks for having us here today also. And, you know, everybody check out instrumentheadlive.com. Is that right, Michael? Instrumenthead Live.
The concert series tonight. Yep. Watch Steve Poltz. And then instrumenthead.com is the campaign. You know, I'm trying to raise $65,000 to put this book out. We're going to.
Somebody listening has got to have $65,000.
Someone's got to have that. If someone on here just wants to give me that,
I mean, even half of it, you know, it would be great.
You could have 1,500 books.
Yeah. Well, Michelle's in the process of writing a tune with Brody, apparently, about the matzo therapy. So maybe they could, you know, maybe they could donate that money to the campaign.
I'm a huge fan of yours, Michelle Schacht, and I would love to do a photo shoot with you one of these days. And I'm just really taken back that you're here watching this video, because I'm a huge fan of yours.
Yeah, Michelle, come to Nashville. I don't know where you live, but come to Nashville.
We'd love to have you.
We'll take you out for hot chicken. Or if you don't eat meat, we'll take you out for hot vegetarian food.
Thanks everybody
for listening. And Michael, thank you once again. Congratulations. and appreciate you very much. Thank you. And Tom, thanks for having a super cool show. Oh, she eats beef. Okay, there's some great beef in Nashville. Yeah,
Let me jump in here, guys.
that's the spot. Yeah.
Uh, Michael, thank you so much for your art. You know I'm one of your biggest fans, always have been, always will be. And Jeff, thank you so much for hosting today. We know you are very, very busy. When can we see you out live? Soon, right? Tonight at City Winery, I understand?
Yeah, I'm sitting in at City Winery tonight with Brian Haas and Mike Dillon, and getting into some craziness with them. And then the Dave Matthews Band tour starts on July 23rd in Raleigh, so we'll be out all summer. And I'm playing some Duke Ellington music this Friday at Center 615 here in Nashville with a great drummer named Marlon Patton, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And so it's great. I mean, I get to do a lot of different stuff, you know. I get to sit here in my studio and record music for other people and some stuff for myself. So it's you know, I'm living the dream, man. I teach at Vanderbilt. I've been teaching there for this was my 6th year. So, man, I'm grateful every day. And I get to take cool photographs, too, with people.
He's a great. I've got some of Jeff's work hanging in my home, you know, so he's a great photographer. I mean, I wish he just wasn't so damn good at everything, you know? It's like
I'm just trying to keep up with you, man.
yeah, right. Come on. Hey, thank you.
Thank you to both of you for your creative genius. Please keep the magic working. And folks, thank you to the audience for tuning in. We'll be back here on Thursday with 2 more rock stars, including one named Rocky Bucano, who is the executive director of the Hip Hop Museum, which is underway in construction in the Bronx, New York. So tune in to hear all about the Hip Hop Museum. With that, I will sign off by saying be nice to each other and get a shot. See you soon, folks.
Yeah. Peace, everybody.
Bye.